Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Charles Ives, Essential Works for Beginners. This was requested some time ago, and I've been meaning to get to it, and so I apologize if it's taken so long. I have a great love for and feeling, I think, for the music of Charles Ives because he was a Connecticut person. I was a Connecticut person. He grew up in Danbury, where my dad and grandparents lived. He went to Hopkins Grammar School, which was the high school I went to. We used to have Charles Ives festivals. And his New England sensibility, I just feel very close to, as well as his experimental side. So let's see what we get through. There are 7 pieces that I think beginners ought to give a shot to, or to which beginners should give a shot or give a listen. And they proceed, well, sort of in increasing difficulty or craziness, depending on how you look at it, because Ives was amazing. He began life as a somewhat conservative composer, tonal and kind of, but not quite normal, and then started becoming extremely avant-garde and challenging his listeners by writing fantastical collages containing hymn tunes and things in multiple keys simultaneously. And the thing that makes all of this approachable, I think, is that he creates these crazy avant-garde sonic panoramas from traditional materials. Simple songs, folk songs, hymn songs, pieces that you recognize all the time as they bubble to the surface. And it's just fascinating to listen to, at least people who were raised in some of the same tradition that he was. So, and there's a lot of music, lots of stuff to explore. And as usual with these essential works for beginners, please don't suggest anything that's off the list. I think it's difficult enough for beginners to know where to start. And once I've told them where to start, that's where to start. Other people may have other avenues, and that's a good thing. It really is, but not here, because I really think that it's better to have less. Less is more, let's put it that way, and focus on that and get to know it, than it is to just have 400 different opinions about all the different things that somebody should be listening to. So I hope you understand that, at least for this series of videos. I've mentioned it before, but not for a while. So here we go. You ready? First, the Unanswered Question, the most famous Ives orchestral piece, and it really says a lot, actually, about him, his sort of transcendental preoccupations, his handling of style and idiom. And it's only about 7 or 8 minutes long. It consists of 2 orchestral groups. One is an offstage group of strings that plays the purest, most beautiful, endlessly recurring group of simple harmonies. And they represent the silence of the Druids. It's the cosmos, the cosmic backdrop. And against that, a solo trumpet poses the question of existence, which is atonal. And a group of 4 woodwinds, it can be 4 flutes or any combination of flutes and oboes or whatever, attempts to answer the trumpet's question. Each time they do something, the trumpet asks the question again, having been unsatisfied with the answer. And the answers become more and more frenetic and noisy and querulous until finally they just give up. And echoing out into the cosmic void is the question, which is unchanging and constantly asked. It's a fabulous piece. It does exactly what it says it does. It's called the Unanswered Question, and you get an unanswered question. And it's done with such poetry and a combination of serenity and humor and acidulous aggravation. It's fantastic. Now, the Unanswered Question is part of a diptych, the other piece being Central Park in the Dark. Now, Central Park in the Dark is another tone poem where You have music of darkness, of the night. Now, in an unanswered question, the music of, space and, the darkness and mystery was tonal. In Central Park in the Dark, it's the opposite. It's atonal. But against that, you hear dance music coming from a bar or, some sort of cabaret, which is probably on Fifth Avenue, just on the other side of the street from Central Park. And so what Ives is doing is he's juxtaposing tonal and atonal elements and certain all quasi-random and deterministic musical lines, and they're opposites essentially. So if you get Central Park in the Dark, it's much more interesting to hear it in the context of the unanswered question. If not, it doesn't matter. You can move on to the next piece, which is a song, Charlie Rutledge. Now, Ives was a fabulous songwriter, and he wrote well over 100 songs. Some of them are normal standard songs with piano, with normal tunes. Some of them are for unison chorus. Some of them, as he said himself in his prelude to his songs, his notes, can't be sung at all. He said songs have a right to exist, whether you can sing them or not, which is kind of interesting attitude. Charlie Rutledge is a riot. It's a funny, fabulous song about a cow puncher, cattle rustler, rustler, one of those guys who corrals cows, and who is crushed to death when one of the cows excites his horse, which lunges up, throws him off, and falls on top of him. And the song begins as in, another good cow puncher has gone to meet his fate. I hope he'll find a resting place within the Golden Gate. It's as Western hokey as can be. But then once the cows go crazy and the horse jumps up and it all becomes completely insane, at which point the singer has to narrate in Schoenberg-like Sprechstimme, and the pianist has to bang on the keyboard with his fist as the horse crushes him to death, and then the song returns to its opening. It's just a fantastic piece that I think shows Ives' wit and genius for setting text. It's really amazing. So just listen to that one song. You'll love it. Then Symphony No. 2. Symphony No. 2 is a transitional work. He's stripping away the accretions of late Romantic symphonic grandiosity and instead substituting Americana, essentially, songs from his days at Yale, and of course the great finale, which ends with a glorious apotheosis on the tune Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean, and the final chord, which consists of all the notes of the scale that the symphony is in, except the key that the symphony is in. It's Reveille. It ends with bum bum ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dum bum wah, and then it just stops. It was the piece that, when it was finally premiered in the 1950s, which was something like 50 years after it was composed, put Ives on the map. Leonard Bernstein played it with the New York Philharmonic. An extraordinary work, very easy to listen to and enjoyable and fun. Then the Three Places in New England. Ives wrote some pieces which he simply called orchestral sets. There are 3 of them, actually. And then a lot of orchestral sets for chamber orchestras. He just called them sets 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Not all of them have survived. But Three Places in New England is his first orchestral set. It contains 3 tone poems. The St. Gaudens in Boston, which is a monument that pays tribute to the African-American division that fought in the Revolutionary War. It's a ghostly funeral march, a dirge. The central movement is Putnam's Camp at Reading, Connecticut, a place where I used to go on school trips. We used to go to Putnam Park. We saw Putnam's Cave. We went into Putnam's Cave. I know all about Reading, Connecticut. I've actually lived there for a while, if I'm not mistaken. I'm in Reading. It's a lovely little park. And it features 2 4th of July or one of those holidays in Danbury, where 2 brass bands one coming down one street and one going down the other, crash into each other, each playing their own music at their own key, at their own tempo. And it ends suddenly. And then the finale is the Housatonic at Stockbridge. Absolutely gorgeous, beautiful moment. You can see the Housatonic at Stockbridge if you drive up to Tanglewood to see the Boston Symphony, because Tanglewood is in Stockbridge. There's a covered bridge there. The Housatonic River flows under it. I grew up on the shores, the banks of the Housatonic River, because it enters the Long Island Sound between Milford, where I grew up, and Stratford on the other side. It's a piece that has always enchanted me. It's a song as well, but here it's an orchestral arrangement, and it depicts the Housatonic River first as heard from the covered bridge on a dewy morning with fog drifting along the riverbank. And as the river broadens, it gets noisier and crazier and more dissonant, and then finally fades off as it goes out to sea. It's just one of the most exceptionally evocative 4 or 5 minutes in all of music. Really, really tremendous. Next, the Concord Sonata, one of the all-time great 20th century piano sonatas. Each movement is named after one of the New England Transcendentalist authors, Emerson, Hawthorne, Thoreau, and the Alcotts as a group. Throughout the sonata, which sounds like nothing else in the world, you will hear the ghost of Beethoven's Fifth, bum, 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 most entirely the Alcotts, which is built almost solely from that motive, but everywhere else in the piece as well, plus all the usual folk tunes and things all jamming together. And then a transcendental finale, which uses, among other things, a wooden board that you have to stomp the keyboard on, not loudly, and possibly a flute or viola solo if you want to throw one in there. But it's an amazing piece of music. And when it was first performed by John Kirkpatrick, or recorded, critics immediately recognized it as one of the great American contributions to the piano literature. There's also a first sonata, by the way, which is extraordinarily good. It just doesn't have the nickname, and people don't know it as well. But the Concord is really special. It's been recorded lots and lots and lots of times, and it's definitely worth getting to know. Just keep your ears open, because it goes into some very interesting places. And last but not least, the Fourth Symphony. Now, the Fourth Symphony was completed around the first decade, maybe 1915, 16 of the 20th century, and it wasn't premiered until the 1960s, when Leopold Stokowski did it with the American Symphony Orchestra and recorded it fabulously, I might add. It requires 3 conductors, because all kinds of different things are happening at different times. And like all of Ives, it is a giant version of the Unanswered Question, because it begins with a brief choral movement, a little prelude about 3 or 4 minutes long, which sets a hymn tune. Watchmen, tell us of the night, what the signs of promise are. Yeah, I mean, it asks the question. And the next 3 movements attempt to answer it. And it's really, I won't give it away. It does everything you can think of. There's everything in the symphony but the kitchen sink. And it's all over in about half an hour. But it is full of mystery and beauty and noise and craziness. And it ends with a transfigured, transcendental, mysterious conclusion that you have to hear. It's indescribable. And those, my friends, I think are the 7 essential works for beginners by Charles Ives. Take them slowly, take them one at a time, get to know them and internalize them, and in any order you like. You don't have to do it in the order I list them here, but I think you'll find yourself amply rewarded. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.